Every thought we think isn't just a flicker of mind. It's a pulse, a broadcast, a signal sent out into the quantum field of all potential. Not metaphorically, literally. Each thought is a vibrational instruction, whispered, sometimes shouted, into the fabric of possibility. And the field, it listens, always. Not to your words, but to your signal. You've felt this. Walk into a room after an argument. No one needs to explain anything. The air feels heavier. Frequencies linger. That's the signal. Or think about the stranger on the train whose presence feels inexplicably calming, while another makes your chest tighten for no reason you can name. That's the signal. Every thought, emotion, and embodied belief shapes the electromagnetic field you emit. You're not just thinking. You're programming. You're not just hoping. You're broadcasting. And what you send out does not vanish. It weaves into timelines, collapsing probabilities, shaping how life meets you at the level of your nervous system, not your intentions. This is why you don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. Not what you affirm once a day, but what you embody all day. What your nervous system believes is safe. What your identity deems possible. Because the field does not respond to words. It responds to coherence. To the silent resonance of truth you've practiced into your cells. A single thought, if felt deeply enough, can shift your path. Not because the thought is special, but because your body believed it. Because your signal changed. Because your frequency rose to meet the version of you that already lives the life you long for. And that version? It's not far. It's here, now, waiting for permission to be remembered. So ask yourself, not what do I want, but what am I actually sending out? What emotion do I fall asleep with? What internal narrative plays quietly beneath my smile? Because it's not the performance that creates outcomes. It's the energetic script behind the scenes. The thoughts no one hears. The fears we normalize. The tiny moments of collapse we dismiss as nothing. Those are the architects of reality. That's the signal that shapes the field. This is not punishment. It's precision. The quantum field is not moral. It's mechanical. It reflects, like a mirror, whatever coherence it receives. And if you're incoherent, if your thoughts say one thing but your body feels another, confusion is what you'll manifest. Mixed signals collapse into mixed outcomes. You don't get what you want. You get what your system can hold. So the path is not more effort. It's more alignment, more honesty, more attunement to the signal you are, not the one you wish you were. Because change doesn't come from self-deception. It comes from self-intimacy, from meeting yourself so fully that the signal clears. And when it does, reality bends, not with force, but with frequency. I used to think that thoughts were private, that they lived quietly inside the mind, invisible and harmless until spoken or acted upon. But energy doesn't wait for expression. It doesn't ask for permission. It flows. And thought, at its root, is energy, a spark, a frequency. And the moment it's felt, it's sent, outward, beyond the skull, into the field. This is why sometimes before a phone rings, you already know who it is. Why you think of someone you haven't seen in years, and they show up in a dream, or your inbox. These aren't coincidences. They're echoes. Echoes of the signal you sent or received, long before your conscious mind could process it. We are transmitters, and we are receivers, constantly. So the question isn't whether you're emitting. The question is, what frequency are you broadcasting right now? Not what you want to feel, but what you're actually living in your body. Because the field doesn't respond to fantasy. It responds to frequency. And your frequency is determined by the truth of your inner landscape. Your breath, your tone, your pace, your posture. These are the antennas. They reveal your coherence, or lack of it. Imagine waking up with tightness in your chest. Your mind says, today will be beautiful, but your body is bracing, your gut is tense, your breath is shallow, the signal is split. The field hears the tension, not the affirmation, and so your day unfolds in ways that match the undercurrent, not the surface. This isn't failure, it's feedback. But if, instead, you pause, you breathe, you soften into the tension, you speak gently to your system, letting it know safety is here, now. Slowly, the body shifts, the breath deepens, the heart steadies, and in that moment, without a word, your frequency changes. That's the real affirmation. not a phrase, but a state, because thought becomes signal only when it's embodied. Until then, it's just noise. But the moment it's felt, in the bones, in the belly, in the breath, it becomes a transmission. And that transmission creates outcome, not always immediately, but inevitably. Like ripples reaching the shore, every coherent thought returns as experience. Maybe not in the form you expect, but always in the frequency you emit. That's why the most powerful work you can do isn't controlling your thoughts. It's regulating your state, because a regulated state naturally generates coherent thoughts. Peaceful systems don't think chaotic things. Safe bodies don't scream in fear. And when your inner world is at peace, the signals you send are clean, clear, magnetic. We spend so much time trying to think better thoughts, to force better feelings. But the real magic happens when we stop forcing, when we start listening, when we ask, what is the signal I'm broadcasting without realizing? And then, gently, lovingly, choose to shift it, not with will, but with presence. Because when presence leads, coherence follows. And coherence? That's the language of manifestation. There's a moment, so subtle it's easy to miss, when the body relaxes and something inside exhales. It's not relief because something outside changed. It's relief because something inside aligned. That's when the signal shifts. That's when the field hears you clearly. Think about it. When have you felt most magnetic? Most alive? Not when you were striving, trying to be positive or forcing clarity, but when you were simply present, undistracted, real. Maybe you were walking through nature, and the world felt like it was breathing with you, or you were holding someone you love and time stood still. In those moments, you weren't emitting confusion. You were radiating coherence. Your frequency said, I am here, I am safe, I am enough, and life met you there. We think we need to work hard to attract what we want, but reality responds to the clarity of your being, not the volume of your effort, not more doing, more remembering. Because what you're seeking isn't out there. It's encoded in the frequency of who you already are, beneath the noise, the tension, the stories. When the noise quiets, the signal clears. And with a clear signal, the outcomes change. But coherence isn't perfection. It's congruence. It's when your thoughts, emotions, and body are telling the same story. Even if that story is, I'm scared, but I'm willing. Even if it's, I don't know what's next, but I trust. That's powerful, because the field responds to truth, always. And there is nothing more magnetic than an honest nervous system. So the path isn't to pretend you're high vibe when you're drowning in anxiety. It's to meet yourself in the anxiety, to breathe with it, to regulate the body until safety returns. Because when safety is restored, coherence returns. And from there, the signal changes. The signal says, I trust myself. And that trust begins to shape your reality in ways you cannot predict, but will absolutely recognize. You see, the quantum field doesn't speak language. It speaks vibration. It mirrors whatever signal is strongest. And often, the strongest signal isn't what you say, it's what you rehearse emotionally. If you constantly rehearse fear, lack, or not enoughness, those become the commands. Not because you're broken, but because you're powerful. This is the paradox. You are always manifesting. Not sometimes. Always. Every signal creates outcome. And the beauty is, once you realize this, you reclaim the pen. You stop waiting for life to change so you can feel different. You feel different so life begins to reflect it. It begins in the smallest moments, choosing breath instead of reactivity, choosing softness instead of shutdown, choosing to feel instead of escape, not to get somewhere, but because those choices change the signal. And changed signals change lives. It's not instant, it's intimate. It's not magic in the way we think of it, but it's more magical than we've ever known. Because when the signal clears and the field mirrors back what's truly aligned, there's no need to chase anything. You simply receive what matches who you've become. There's a frequency you emit when no one is watching, when you're not performing or pleasing or pretending, when the masks fall and the inner noise grows quiet. That frequency, raw, unfiltered, is the one the universe responds to most clearly, because that's the signal that's real. And in the realm of vibration, only what is real resonates. You can't fake frequency. You can fake a smile. You can fake confidence. You can fake positivity. But the quantum doesn't respond to appearance. It responds to essence. And essence is felt, not manufactured. You've walked into spaces where everything looked perfect, yet your skin bristled. The beauty was there, but the energy was off. The signal was dissonant, because the truth always leaks through. Frequency never lies. And so manifestation becomes less about trying to think better thoughts and more about becoming the version of you whose baseline signal matches what you desire. Not through force, but through embodiment, through becoming a safe space for that version to land. And that happens through nervous system safety, through emotional truth, through moment-to-moment coherence, not imagined alignment, but lived resonance. Imagine you want to manifest love. You visualize, you script, you dream. But deep inside, your body flinches at the thought of intimacy. Your gut tenses. Your heart races with the memory of past pain. That's the signal. And no matter how beautifully you affirm, the field hears the flinch. It hears the fear, not to punish you, but to show you where coherence is missing, where integration is needed, where love is still waiting to be allowed. Or say you desire abundance. You repeat mantras of prosperity. You read books on wealth. But in the silence of your home, your stomach knots when you check your bank account. You live with a subtle panic humming beneath your ribs. That's the signal, and that's where the work begins. Not with more affirmations, but with the courage to meet the knot, to breathe into it, to ask it what it needs. Because when the body feels safe with wealth, the field responds. Not with delay, with precision. This is the beauty of the observer effect. Your awareness isn't passive, it's participatory. When you observe a state with love instead of judgment, the signal begins to shift. You're not fighting the fear, you're alchemizing it. And in that alchemy, your frequency elevates. Not because you pushed, but because you embraced. Every thought sends a signal, but not every thought is created equal. The thoughts that carry charge, the ones felt deeply, lived viscerally, those are the ones with weight. Those are the ones that write timelines. A passing thought of doubt won't collapse your desires, but a chronic pattern of embodied doubt will, because repetition is ritual, and ritual creates reality. So what rituals are you practicing with your thoughts? What energetic story are you rehearsing daily? Because your repeated states become your broadcast, and the broadcast creates the bridge between where you are and what you call in. But here's the grace in all of this. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to feel high frequency all the time. You only need to be honest, present, willing to meet your signal without shame, willing to hold space for the parts of you that learn to fear joy, or sabotage peace, or mistrust ease. Because when you hold those parts with love, something softens, the static fades, and in that stillness, the signal becomes coherent. Coherence doesn't mean constant calm, it means inner agreement. It means your thoughts, emotions, and energy are no longer at war. And when that happens, even for a moment, the field listens differently. Life organizes around you. Synchronicities increase, doors open, and outcomes that once felt far suddenly arrive with ease. Not because you chased them, but because you became the frequency that matched them. Not from effort, from essence. There's a sacred intelligence woven into your very biology. A knowing that runs deeper than logic, older than memory. It's the intelligence of vibration. And your body, your nervous system, your heart, they're all instruments tuned to it. When that inner orchestra plays in harmony, the field listens with awe, because that's when your signal becomes unmistakable. We are born resonant. Infants don't think their worth, they radiate it. A baby doesn't try to manifest love. They simply emit such purity, such presence, that love arrives without resistance. And yet as we grow, we begin to fracture. We learn to contort our signal to fit into boxes of acceptance. We silence parts of ourselves to avoid rejection. We dim our brilliance to survive. And slowly, our coherence fragments. But here's the miracle. It can be reclaimed. Not by adding more, but by releasing what was never ours. Not through strategy, but through surrender. Because alignment isn't something you manufacture, it's something you remember. And what you're remembering isn't just a better version of yourself. It's your truest signal, the frequency of your essence before the world told you who to be. And as you remember, something extraordinary happens. The outcomes you once chased begin to chase you, because your signal now sings in a language the field understands. Truth. Let me tell you about a moment I'll never forget. I was sitting alone in the park, overwhelmed, uncertain, trying so hard to think positive and call in clarity. Nothing was shifting. My mind was loud, but my body was closed. And then, something broke. Not with drama, but with softness. I let the tension go. I stopped trying to fix it. I just sat, breathed, felt the wind. And in that pause, that still point, I could feel it, the signal shift. Not in thought, in being. An hour later, an opportunity arrived that I had been longing for. Unsolicited, unexpected, aligned. It wasn't magic. It was coherence. I had stopped trying to force the outcome and started to match the frequency of receiving. Not by doing more, by allowing more. This is the secret no one teaches clearly. Outcomes aren't commanded by control. They're summoned by signal. And your signal is a byproduct of your nervous system, your emotional tone, your moment-to-moment honesty with yourself. You don't have to shout into the universe. You just have to emit a signal strong enough, clear enough, that the field recognizes it without confusion. It's like music. If your frequency is distorted, the notes clash and the song is hard to hear. But when your system plays in tune, when your thoughts, emotions, and body align, the melody becomes irresistible. Life dances to it. People feel it. Opportunities echo it. And you don't need a grand plan. You just need presence. Because presence restores harmony. And harmony emits the most coherent magnetic signal of all. So instead of asking, "What more do I need to do?" ask, "Where am I not being true?" Instead of chasing outcomes, soften into coherence. Instead of fixing yourself, feel yourself. Because the more attuned you are to your signal, the less you'll need to search. You'll become the one who is found. Remember, you are always emitting. The question is, are you emitting from fear or from remembrance, from protection or from possibility? Every thought, every breath, every sensation, it's all part of the song. And when that song is honest, the field sings back in harmony. It can feel maddening, can't it? To be doing all the right things, saying the affirmations, visualizing the life you desire, checking every spiritual box, and yet, nothing changes. Or worse, you feel stuck in the same loop, attracting the same outcomes you thought you'd outgrown. But it's not because you're blocked. It's because your signal is still coded in the language of your past. This is where most people give up. They believe the manifestation isn't working. But the truth is, it is working, just not in the way they hoped. Because the field doesn't deliver what you desire. It delivers what you consistently signal. And if your body still associates safety with the familiar pain, it will recreate that pain over and over until your frequency says otherwise. This isn't failure, it's fidelity. Your system is loyal to the known, and it will keep broadcasting the same emotional set point, abandonment, scarcity, doubt, until it's shown that safety exists in the unknown, that it's safe to feel joy, safe to receive more, safe to expand. And that safety doesn't arrive from thinking differently. It arrives from becoming different, not better, more true. Because again, this isn't about performance, it's about embodiment. You can't outthink a nervous system that still believes love equals loss. You can't out-visualize a heart that still clenches when ease arrives. But you can rewire it, gently, patiently. You can show your body that a new signal is possible. And once it learns to trust that signal, the field responds immediately. So what does this rewiring look like? It's subtle, quiet, often invisible. It looks like noticing when you tense your jaw during rest and softening it. It looks like choosing to breathe deeply before checking your phone in the morning. It looks like not abandoning yourself in conversation just to keep the peace. Small acts, but each one emits a new frequency. Each one teaches your system a different truth. And over time, those tiny shifts become a thunderous broadcast. They say, "I am safe now. I am enough now. I no longer need to struggle to prove my worth." And when the signal shifts, the outcomes follow. Without force, without hustle. Because the field isn't stubborn. It's responsive. It doesn't resist you. It reflects you. So if you're still meeting resistance in life, get curious. What part of you is still sending a signal of fear, of lack, of unworthiness? Not to judge it, to love it, Because only love clears distortion, only safety opens the gate, and only coherence calls in the life that's already waiting at your door. The irony is, the more you chase the outcome, the more scattered your signal becomes. But the moment you return to presence, to the breath, to the body, to the now, your frequency stabilizes. You stop chasing and start receiving. You stop trying to become and start being. And from that beingness, miracles unfold. Not because you earned them, but because your frequency became a match, not to fantasy, but to truth. This is the dance of reality. Every thought sends a signal. Every signal creates an outcome. And when those thoughts are no longer fragments of fear but whole notes of coherence, you become undeniable to the universe, not as a wishful thinker, but as a living, breathing signal of alignment. It's easy to forget how powerful you are when the world moves fast, when life throws noise in every direction and your system scrambles to keep up. But beneath that chaos, there's a deeper rhythm, always. The rhythm of your being, the signal you send. And that signal never stops pulsing, never stops shaping, never stops calling in what matches its tone. We tend to look at our lives and think, why is this happening to me? But a more honest question might be, what is my signal asking for? Because outcomes are not random. They're reflections. And while it might sting to admit, the patterns that persist in your life are not punishments. They're mirrors. They show you where your coherence is split, where your alignment is still waiting to be reclaimed. That's not something to shame. That's something to celebrate. Because if you are the one emitting the signal, then you are the one who holds the power to change it. That's sovereignty. That's quantum authorship. Not from control, but from choice. And choice is born in the body, not in theory, not in future plans, but in the quiet decisions you make moment to moment, to slow down, to breathe deeper, to stop mid-thought and ask, is this what I want to signal? And if not, to choose again. Because frequency isn't fixed. It's fluid. You can shift it in an instant if you're present enough to notice. So much of manifestation gets tangled in effort, in proving, in performance. But real manifestation, the kind that rearranges timelines and births new realities, it happens in the stillness, in the subtle, in the deep coherence of someone who has made peace with themselves. And that peace? It's not passive. It's powerful. It's the kind of peace that reorganizes your entire life without a single forceful push. Because when your signal says, I am safe, I am worthy, I trust, the universe says yes, not as a reward, but as a reflection. It's like tuning a radio. If you're slightly off, all you get is static. But when you align exactly with the station's frequency, the sound is clear. You don't have to scream to hear it. You don't have to try harder. You just have to tune in. That's what your signal does. It tunes you into the version of reality that already exists in vibrational form. And when the tuning is precise, the manifestation is inevitable. This is why you don't need to chase. You don't need to beg. You don't need to convince the universe to give you what you desire. You only need to become the version of you who lives in the feeling of having it now. That version isn't a fantasy. It's a frequency, and it's already inside you, waiting for permission to rise. You access it not by bypassing your emotions, but by moving through them. Not by escaping your past, but by integrating it. Because every part of you, every wound, every memory, every fear contains information. And when that information is met with love, it transmutes into wisdom, into clarity, into signal. So stop asking, when will it happen? And start asking, what am I broadcasting now? Stop forcing timelines and start tuning your frequency. Because the moment your signal aligns, the wait ends. Not because time has passed, but because coherence has arrived. And coherence collapses time. That's the real quantum leap. Not into something new, but into the version of you who was always aligned, always emitting, always ready. So here we are, full circle. Back to the truth we always knew but so often forget. You are not waiting on reality to catch up. Reality is waiting on your signal to clarify. Because you're not just a passenger in this life, you're the broadcaster, the conductor, the frequency maker. And every thought you allow to settle in your body, every feeling you choose to breathe into, becomes the next note in the symphony of your becoming. You may think you're stuck, but the field doesn't register stuck. It registers signals. And stuckness is just a signal on loop, one that can be changed the moment you choose to emit something different. That choice doesn't require proof. It doesn't wait for conditions to change. It happens in the now, in the breath, in the willingness to say, I choose coherence, even if I don't know how it ends. And that's where everything begins to shift. When you stop outsourcing your alignment to outcomes and start claiming your signal as the source. Because your power isn't in what happens to you. It's in what you continue to emit, regardless. There's a kind of magic that unfolds when you decide to hold a frequency, not because life is proving it, but because it is true for you. When you say, I choose to feel abundance, not because your bank account reflects it, but because your soul remembers how it feels. That signal, sent from the deepest part of your being, changes everything. Not overnight, not always visibly, but undeniably. You start walking into rooms and the energy shifts around you. You start noticing synchronicities that feel like whispers from the field saying, yes, this way. You start meeting people who reflect your growth, not your wounds. And things that once felt impossible begin arriving with gentle inevitability. This is the quiet revolution, not of thoughts alone, but of frequency. Not of perfection, but of presence. Not of shouting your desires into the void, but of becoming so internally resonant that the void sings back in harmony. You don't have to get louder, you just have to get clearer. You don't need to do more, you need to feel more, to regulate more, to soften more, to remember that the signal is always being sent. So why not make it honest? Why not make it kind? Why not make it safe enough that the life you're calling in can actually land? Because that's the final piece we often miss. You are not just broadcasting, you are receiving. And what you receive is not determined by your words. It's determined by what your system believes is safe to allow in. So create safety for joy, create safety for ease, create safety for overflow, for love, for miracles. Not by bracing for them, but by breathing with them, even before they arrive. Let your thoughts become invitations. Let your emotions become instruments. Let your signal become a sanctuary. One that says to the quantum field, I'm ready, I remember. I am no longer emitting from fear. I am emitting from truth, from coherence, from the deep knowing that everything I seek already lives within me, vibrating quietly, waiting for me to tune in and say, yes, now.